Hey yo, man, doggy dog back up in the building. Fabio Wardley versus Joseph Parker. Let's talk about it, baby. I was there at the O2. First time I've seen a fight at the O2 in a little bit. I think the last one was Whyte versus Spider Richards. Gotta be honest with you, few empty seats, right? Uncle Frank, he's a survivor. He's been around since day, but let's be honest, you can't really promote. The guy can't promote, right? A lot of empty seats, but still, they got a decent crowd in there. I would probably guess maybe they got something like 10, 11,000, maybe 12. Probably a few of those were comps, but the undercard was hot garbage. Do you know what I mean? I think like no, to be fair, the fight before the main event, I think those guys were both in the top 10 on Checker Trade. Do you know what I mean? I think one of them was like highly ranked as a plasterer, and then the other one was more of like in the top 10 of like electricians. But like aside from that, like I don't even know who was on the undercard, right? And it doesn't matter because we're all here to talk about the stoppage, right? Was it early? Was it not? Here's what I think, yeah. It it was a little bit early, as is typically the case when Howard Foster is the ref, right? Everyone knows his rep sheet. Everyone knows about Fox Groves. When are we gonna give Howard Foster his flowers, man? When are we gonna stop complaining and give that man his props for everything that he has done for British boxing? Because when he stopped that first fight too early, the whole country, all of the football fans, all of the casual fans, every man and his brother who don't know nothing about boxing wanted to watch the second fight. And that really was the catalyst of a major renaissance in like when that fight happened, yeah, in British boxing, that was the first major stadium fight that there's been for a long time, especially like a full stadium. Wembley, like, let's give Howard Foster his flowers, man. Before that, Joe Calzaghe was fighting in front of like half-empty Millennium Stadium, and that was donkeys years ago. And so, yeah, maybe he's back up to his old tricks, man. Early stoppage. Let's get some excitement going in the heavyweight division. Usyk's obviously dominated. He's what cleaned out the division. No one really knows who's gonna fight him. Nobody really cares 'cause everyone knows Usyk's the man, right? Let's get the rematch going. That's what I say. It was a little bit early, but it was within the margin for error. Yeah, it was within the margin for error. I'm not gonna say it was a robbery because unfortunately, with boxing the definition of robbery is pretty extreme. Like we're just so used to certain intangibles going in favor of the home fighter. Now they're both with Frank Warren, but let's be honest, Fabio Wardley's the British fighter. It's in London. Wardley's the puncher. Wardley's the guy who's undefeated. Parker's been around the block. He's from New Zealand. He doesn't really have a big fan base. There's not a big upside, even if he did pull off a miracle against Usyk. So from a business stakeholder point of view, Frank Warren, Turkey Al Sheikh, the Zone, everyone wanted Wardley to win. And everyone knows that Wardley's someone who gives away rounds, but sooner or later he's going to catch you. So if sooner or later he's going to catch you, you want to have a referee who's quick to jump in. And that's all the pieces of the puzzle aligned, right? And so that's not necessarily explicit corruption, but there's an implicit setting up of the chessboard in the home fighter's favor. And so I think it's one of those things, but from a Joseph Parker point of view, if you're taking 15 shots and coming back with one and then getting caught with another 10, yeah, if you've like been if like I don't want to say like 25 unanswered punches because Parker did maybe throw one or maybe two back, right? But you can't be like in the heavyweight division getting hit with 25 shots and thinking the ref ain't gonna step in. So that's why I say it was within the realms of the of acceptance. To be honest, for me, being there in person, it didn't seem too early because you could see Howard Foster was lining up, and the fact is, you knew it was him, right? And so, as a fighter, if you're Joseph Parker, you have to know these things coming in. You have to know you're up against a ref who's prone to jump in quickly. You have to know that you're in against a big puncher in his last fight, lost almost every round, caught the guy in the 11th, didn't even let the guy get up. It was all called off. So you have to price all of these things in when you walk in. And if you're letting a guy tee off on you 20, 25 punches and you're only throwing back one or two, it's within the margin. Do you know what I mean? It's within the margins, right? So basically, on boxing's low standards, yeah, this is not a robbery. Yeah, this is not a robbery. This is like, if you go into Boss Man's shop, yeah, and you buy a newspaper, but you might have just slid in like a chocolate in the newspaper, right? Accidentally, and then like he just charges for the newspaper and you walk out. Yeah. So like, is it a robbery technically? But under like London boss man shop rules, like these things just kind of get priced in, right? There's a certain amount of slippage that in a sport like boxing you just have to forgive. So that was what the way I saw it. The question is now, what happens next? Yeah, does Wardley get his shot at Usyk? I personally think he does, right? And here's why. Is Wardley gonna beat Usyk? No. Yeah, and if you think that he is, like, honestly, you're on the sniff, bro. Let's be honest. You need to talk to Frank. I don't know whether Frank even exists anymore. That used to be a drug helpline back in the day. You need to talk to somebody, right? You need to have a support system around you because, like, Wardley's not going to beat Usyk, but it is an exciting fight. And even as Usyk is whipping his ass for 12 rounds, yeah, people will still have that level of jeopardy, that level of excitement, that level of uh, unpredictability because we've seen him be 11 rounds down and still pull it out of the bag. So that gives it a bit of a sales narrative. Plus the fact, Usyk versus a Brit, like the Brits are gonna come out. He's the Brit basher. He's beat everyone. He's beat even the guys that we thought were the favorites, like Joshua Fury or whatever, right? So why not back him against the perpetual underdog, which is Fabio Wardley? So I think that fight can be sold. I think it can be sold a lot better than the Parker fight ever could be, right? And I think it probably happens. Me personally, I'd like to see the rematch. I'd like to see Wardley back in there. Parker was up on the cards. There was a round and a half to go. Let's say it's something that's quite a common occurrence is that when fighters are up on the cards, they'll take the 11th off so that they can have a strong 12th round, right? And so Parker, it's not in his character. He's a very mild-mannered, respectful guy. He didn't want to complain. But I feel if I was Joseph Parker or if I was his manager, I'd be shouting from the rooftops for a rematch because it was a good fight, entertaining fight. Parker was ahead on the cards. He had his moments as well. There was times where Fabio looked like he was rocking and rolling. That fight does really good business. I think it probably sells out, the O2 with a respectable undercard next time. Yeah. That's what I'd like to see. Does it happen? Probably not. I think Usyk probably wants an opponent early in the new year to kick off Riyadh season, and I think probably March time, something like that. Wardley's probably the guy, right? And yeah, that's what I thought. There's talk about Chisora versus Whyte in the third fight. I'm not mad at that fight. I'd quite like to see, to be honest with you, let both of those guys settle the differences. 50-50 is a fair split. Both of the fights were controversial. I thought the first fight was a robbery. I thought the second fight was controversial. And I'll be honest with you, I hope Chisora gets the business done against Dillian Whyte. That's me, short and sweet. We're back. I can't say we're going to be back regularly, but we're back. Peace.